It's me from the present and visiting the past because we recorded this episode kind of a while back, and I have a very special update that I'm sure if you follow us on social media, you have seen, but Corinne and Bryan have welcomed their baby boy, Noah, into this world. And while Corinne is going to be on maternity leave, I'm going to pop in a little bit occasionally to give some updates and also comment on some outdated things that we said in the past. But this is a note from Corinne. She says, "We welcomed a healthy baby boy, Noah, on June 11th. His early ejection attempt was going quite well, but he did a few too many twirls in utero and got a bit tangled up. Corinne is recovering from the C-section, and Noah has very easily adjusted to life outside of the womb. Born to a Gemini father and Leo mother, Noah was born with his sun in Gemini and moon in Leo." Well, that's pretty cool. "He is not yet reported on any ghostly sightings or past lives, though the hospital's maternity ward is haunted." I wonder if Corinne has any ghost stories from the maternity wing. Corinne, Bryan, and baby are all home, happy and healthy. I know a lot of people do want to send well wishes and little gifts. Corinne would kill me for saying this, and she would say absolutely do not do that. But we do have a P.O. box if you want to send anything. I am going to be making visits every once in a while to her and to my nephew as creepy aunt duties that I have put on myself. Corinne has not asked me to be such, but alas, she is stuck with me. Okay, back to the past / episode.
Hi.
I feel like this is going to be a spooky episode.
The setting is right.
It is.
And we have a theme over here for
that
today.
You forgot you picked.
That I forgot I picked, and I was like, oh, I need more time. I didn't pick any stories for this. I didn't realize you chose the theme, and you were like, you chose the theme. It's like, oh, well. I did half the homework. I was the teacher, but then I wasn't the student at the same time.
But,
and I needed
but
to.
you have prepared them now. Now you have them.
Yeah. I think that was actually a great example of what pregnancy has done to my brain. I have about 30% of any thought or action completed, and then it's completely forgotten about. Like, I've been the worst worker. I'm the worst at keeping my house together. Like, I'm just the worst at everything because I only get 30% there, and then I'm done.
You have an excuse. What's my excuse?
But I'm not used to it.
Is my excuse that you and I share a brain cell, and so whatever you're going through, I'm going through? Is that how this works?
Oh, you're preparing for your maternity leave as well. This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
Two Girls, One Ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That's Corinne.
Hello.
I'm Sabrina. And it does make me sad that we're like on the same coast within hours of each other, but we are not able to record together right at this moment.
No, we will in the future.
You know what I think about a lot is, and I've like had conversations about this recently where I'm like, okay, if I were to move back to the East Coast, my first thought is always to move either to Marblehead or closer, like just generally closer to you and not to be right next to my family.
Oh my God. That is funny. It's also funny because like you love Marblehead so much that you post pictures of Marblehead. And so I think people like when you're there, and I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this as fighting words, but I think sometimes you forget that you're coming to see me and not Marblehead, and that Marblehead just happens to also be here.
Okay, fair. It is one of those like weird backwards things though, because despite not physically seeing you in person, I spend more time with you than anyone else in my life. I wanted to pause for a second. Hi, this is me in present day visiting past us. Because Corinne and I here are talking about how every time I visit Marblehead, I don't really treat it as if I'm visiting her. Well, guess what? Present day me lives in Marblehead and is a 30-minute drive from Corinne. So after 2 years plus of her manifesting me moving across the country to being closer to her and to be in Massachusetts, I'm officially a masshole. What's up? I'm in my house in Marblehead right now. You can see my books. You can also see the reflection of me. So if there is anything weird in the mirror besides my own reflection, this is a haunted house. So stay tuned on that. But yeah, just wanted to point out I do live in Marblehead and I am Corinne's neighbor now.
Yes. Well, I've told you this so many times that I never in the past 3 or 4 years have ever remembered to include you on a guest list for anything because you are me and I am you and it's just a given.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are one.
Every single time anything happens, people are like, well, are you going to invite Sabrina? And I was like, well, isn't she already coming?
Doesn't she already know?
Doesn't she
can
already
read my
know?
mind,
Because
right?
I'm thinking of the event. So she must already know what's happening.
We should try an exercise of syncing our brains. I think if we did enough work on it, if we found some way to do this, I don't know what the science is, but I think we could make it happen.
Oh my gosh. That'd actually be so nice because then we wouldn't have to text.
Right.
You know?
Okay, wait. Will you focus really focus on a food item?
Like 17 of them ran through my head, but okay. I'm focused on one. I'm thinking of one. I'm envisioning it. I feel its texture. I'm looking at its colors.
Is it a lemon?
No, but I knew that you were going to guess lemon because that was a pregnancy craving and I just ate a lemon the other day. I was thinking of a plum.
Okay. We have some work to do.
I know. I feel like it would take us a really long time when people play that game where they're like trying to say the same thing. I do
We
think
did
it would
try
take
that,
a
remember?
really long time. Yeah,
We
and it was
tried
horrible.
that backstage in Minnesota and we were so bad at it.
I also freeze up a lot. I like second guess myself.
Right.
Because I'll think of one thing and then I'll think of like 5 more things and then I'll be like,
Yes.
wait, am I supposed to say the first thing or the one that just came to my mind that's like ready to be spoken?
Agreed. And also then sometimes I'm like, am I thinking that because I want that thing? Like the first thing I thought immediately was like sausages. And that's because where my
Which
mom
is not
lives,
a fruit.
they finally, well, I didn't say fruit. I said think of a food.
Oh, you did. I misheard you. There was only fruit in my mind.
Wait, well, you know what's interesting is I said food and I still went to fruit and you heard fruit. So, okay, we're closer than we thought.
Here we are, baby. We basically got it right.
Okay, but
We
this,
win.
do you want to tell everyone the theme? I can't imagine
Okay.
you remember why you picked it, but what's the theme you picked?
You know, I'm going to guess that we had read an email that had to do with some family curse. And you probably said, oh, we should do a family curses episode. And I wrote in the Excel, family curse episode, ? Like months forward. And that's why I forgot about it. But we are going to talk about curses. And curses that have afflicted people and their families.
Yes, we are. This is from our listener, Dill. And Dill sent it to us in 2018.
Hey, see, this is proof. I do feel like every few episodes, we do read some from 2018.
Yeah.
Which I think is, we didn't get emails until 2018, right?
I think people maybe sent a couple in 2017.
2017? Well, if they did, those are for sure read because I don't think we had much.
Right, because we had very few.
So yeah, we were immediately reading anything that hit our inbox.
Okay, so this is from our listener, Dill, and it's called All the Women in My House Are Apparently Cursed. Hi, girls. I've been waiting so long till I finally caught up with all the episodes before sending you my spooky encounters. Now, I cannot vouch for the truth in what I'm going to tell you, but it is what my mother has drilled into me, so it is what it is. I'm going to lay down the groundwork. My mother grew up in Malaysia, very poor, with an abusive mother. She was both mentally and sometimes physically abusive, which has resulted in my mother suffering from depression most of her life. She has also experienced times with suicidal ideation. In 1990, she married my father. My father is from Singapore. Her marriage was supposed to be an escape from living in her then terrible conditions, so she was so excited to move to Singapore. Unfortunately, my dad turned out to be an absolute shithead, and life was not easier for her. She was in a marriage that wasn't working and was struggling to make it in a new country. The details of the next couple of years aren't very important, but in summary, my mother had me and my older brother in the 6 years after her marriage, and both her parents ended up moving in with her. So essentially, my grandmother wanted to mooch off my mother and continue tormenting her. My grandma and dad did not get along at all. However, grandpa was a kind soul and my mother loved him dearly. Everyone did. I don't think growing up surrounded by that much negativity is the best. And to add, my mother had her own mental health issues, which she refused to address. So, as you would suspect, it led my brother and I to not exactly having the healthiest or best childhoods. Both of us struggled with mental health issues of our own, and it's mostly a result of our home environment and terrible relationships with our parents. To this day, my parents are still married, but since birth, I have never seen them actually behave like a married couple unless we were around relatives. But enough of that. Let's talk about the spooky shiz. As a child, and even till now, I have been extremely fascinated with the paranormal and supernatural world. This interest only really started because of all the weird things I experienced that my parents brushed off or ridiculed me for. I never liked my grandma. She gave me the most terrible vibes for as long as I can remember. Her room always had this heavy feeling, and I think it says something if, as a young child, I could notice this.
Yeah.
When I was 5, we moved to a new flat, and I had the joy of having my own room. My room was directly opposite my grandparents' room, and their door was always closed. But truly, the second it was open, you could feel the bad energy.
Wow. That's wild that it just permeates through the house.
I know. This sentence makes me laugh. My grandma, being the absolute ass she is, loved filling my room with her own crap and just generally invading my space. And as a 5-year-old, I was very vocal about not liking this and would just get told off. And I'm not going to lie, I hated her in my room because she would bring those vibes into the room too. In my room, I loved. It was pink. And unfortunately, the more time she spent in there, the more time I would be scared to be in there. The air in my room would feel heavy, and I would swear I could hear voices in there. So thankfully, I slept with my mom in the master bedroom every night, and my dad and housemaid would constantly switch between my brothers and my room. As a kid, I thought nothing of this, but soon we will know otherwise.
Ooh, suspense.
Sadly, my grandpa passed away when I was 8, and after that, the air in the house changed. My grandma was already a terrible person, and she loved telling all of us off for just existing, but she got worse after my grandpa died. So did her vibes. One day, while my grandma was hogging my room to get dressed, she wasn't even going anywhere, but just got out of a shower and just came into my room and took 2 hours to get dressed. I was super vocal about how I wanted her out, ASAP. My mother was screaming at me to stop being a little shit when suddenly there was a loud crash. The ceiling light in my bedroom had fallen off the ceiling and hit my grandma square in the shoulder. She was fine, just a little sore and bruised. This was a very new house, and there was no reason that should have fallen off naturally. She left my room with my mom to get her shoulder sorted out, and I ran into my room and instantly noticed that the air was way lighter, like something changed. Grandma truly never stepped into my room ever again. She was afraid of any other incident, so stayed that way for a while. But then she developed a knack for decorating my room and started buying me little trinkets to put on display. I shit you not, with each new trinket she gave me, the air of my room got heavier and heavier. My dad is an alcoholic, so it was not uncommon for him to be drunk off his ass and tell me things he shouldn't. One day, he spilt something that made many things become very clear to me. Apparently, when I would sleep in my mom's bed with her and my dad and housemaid kept switching rooms, they did it because every time my dad slept in there, he would see things. So he asked the housemaid to sleep in that room instead. She started seeing things in the room constantly. That's why they kept switching. They would see figures standing over them. Even once the maid claimed someone sat on her chest while staring through the open door to my grandma's bedroom.
What
Something was
in the world?
definitely not right.
No.
Needless to say, my fear of my room increased exponentially, and to add to that, voices became more and more clear. Once, it was midday and I walked into my room to get something from my shelf. I'm facing my shelf and I heard a very distinct female voice say, "Hello," from behind me. I turned, only to see the curtains shuffle a little bit, and I just bolted. This was one of the few things I remember distinctly, but there are so many more. My psychiatrist and I have figured that my brain has suppressed a lot of childhood memories, which is probably why, and maybe for the best. Fast forward, I'm 19. I was very depressed and having suicidal ideations, and I had only recently come out to my mom about my issues, and it was not a fun ride. That is when she sat down and told me this. All of the women in our house were cursed. Apparently.
Excuse me? I feel like that should have been told far before this time.
I mean, I feel like you probably don't want to believe it. And if you acknowledge it, like, are you, because you'll hear what the curse is, but like you knew this before experiencing anything, would it then cause you to experience those things? Whereas.
Yeah. And it's like the hope that it might stop or something.
Right, exactly. Okay, so apparently my grandma had had a first marriage that ended very badly. The family of the man she was married to was not happy and apparently had cursed her. When my grandma remarried my lovely grandpa, she very sadly had 3 miscarriages, including 1 stillbirth. Apparently, all of them were girls too. She would have incredibly high fevers and poor health that would immediately disappear the minute those babies were gone. My mom was not an easy birth either, but somehow she was the only baby that survived.
Wow.
She even experienced another stillbirth after that. She then told me that I'd constantly see or witness strange spiritual activity and tell her about it. My mom, being the best communicator ever, apparently would just tell me I was lying and yell at me for lying. I was genuinely terrified, but I guess she wanted to scare the fear out of me. I don't know.
Did it work? No.
No. Apparently, all the misfortune my mom, grandma, and I suffered was a result of this curse. It made sense to me at the time because my brother had experienced literally nothing paranormal our entire childhood.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
My grandma got really sick a few years ago. She had an infection running rampant in her body and some of her systems were failing. Doctors could not see her surviving, and she said that she started hallucinating. She saw black figures standing in her room. By this time, my brother had gone to Australia for university, and I was usually the only one home with her and the maid. The air was heavy. I'd close my door to my room for privacy, only to have the knob turn and open on its own multiple times a day. Sometimes I would smell a very specific floral scent in specific places in the house, places where the air was still. It was the smell of frangipani flower, a certain flower we cover corpses with in funerals. We all expected Grandma's time to be coming to an end. But one day, she just woke up and was 100% fine. Infection was gone. Fever was gone. We were all puzzled. But the activity in the house did not disappear. On the days Grandma was not in a good mood or weaker, little things would happen. It has been a while since I've been home. I've also come to Australia to study, and it's been great to be out of that environment. I try not to think too much about being cursed. I'm pretty skeptical, but sometimes things happen, and I can't help but wonder. I'm currently in a wonderful relationship with my boyfriend who has an amazing family, which is something I'm not used to, but I'm really thankful for. However, the first night I stayed over in their family home, my boyfriend and I were up late working on assignments, and at around 3 a.m., we heard a loud crash. Super spooked, we went to the living room and found 2 large frames with family photos had fallen off 2 different walls at the exact same time.
Whoa. Wait, her family photos or his?
His family photos.
Okay.
It was definitely strange, but nothing has happened since. But when you're told you're cursed and a bad omen, something like that happening to a family you've just been accepted into makes you think. Thanks for reading.
Yes.
I love your podcast. You guys do this thing where despite the negativity and nature of the topic you talk about, you make it a very positive experience. I've also got stories on my high school campus, having been a base for the Japanese army back in World War II. And it was the beach where they murdered prisoners of war. It's down the road, and that place was very active. I can't wait to listen to your next episode. Love, Dill.
Dill. This is giving me Practical Magic, where Sandra Bullock hears the crickets chirping. It's like the curse is coming. The time is up with your partner who you love so much.
I hate that so much.
Because it does feel like, at the end where it's like Dill's with their boyfriend and then the family portraits are just, it's like a reminder of like, you can run, you can think you have something, but the family curse is always here.
I like how you're really leaning into the scary part of the curse.
I know Dill was like, you always find a way to make it positive. I'm like, this is horrible.
This is horrible. Because we just brought things down in past selves of ourselves, and Dill was commenting about how we make things positive. And a lot of things have changed since we recorded this episode. I did want to pop in and make things positive again and comment on the news that I saw this week about a Practical Magic 2 coming out, a prequel, a sequel. I know Alice Hoffman, the author, has written a couple of books. There's Rules of Magic, Practical Magic. There's another one, I think Book of Magic. I have it on my bookshelf somewhere right behind me. Anyway, I hope this is real. I think it's real. I think Alice Hoffman herself confirmed it, but that's positive as heck news. I hope we're all excited, because I am. Now I'm going to reread the books just to get myself excited, but then I'm going to be like, I have to wait for it. Anyway, back to the past, back to the episode. Dill, here's the thing. Curses can be broken. I know that for a fact. I think if you are worried, we can find a way. I say we as if like I have confidence in myself, but I have confidence in our community. Mm-hmm. And I have confidence in our network. Like when we talk to FIO, I feel like they have so much knowledge of a whole array of magic and witchcraft. Yes. And so, yes, Dill, if you're concerned, let's have a little curse conference. Maybe everyone in this episode, we might need to do a little like group sesh to chat about it.
That sounds great. I'm not feeling positive about this episode because I think that we're just about to read a bunch more stories that basically talk about families being cursed in similar ways. And it's like, are there any answers at the end of these? We'll see.
We'll find out.
Or is this just a culmination of like, wow, that sucks?
Maybe not all curses are forever, and maybe not all curses are bad. I think like even when it comes to the paranormal, we've gotten a lot of emails where they're like, my whole family has the ability to do X, Y, and Z. Is it a blessing or is it a curse? Yeah,
it depends on how you view it, how you spin it. But I do think the one I'm about to read, it's very numbers heavy. There's a lot of death. Okay.
Oh, I know exactly which one this was. I almost picked this one.
The Family Curse of the Nines. Hey, y'all. So I thought if I ever had the time to write in a story, it would be about my haunted loft apartment or my husband seeing demons when he sleepwalks. But then I heard Lily's story from Encounters 83, the one where patriarchal members of their family passed away at 49, 59, 69, etc. I completely froze when I heard their story because something very similar has happened in my family. Something that has freaked me out since I was a little kid. There's a lot of family members mentioned here, so I apologize if this is confusing. I don't have a lot of details, but I've been told that my paternal great-grandfather wasn't the best person. I'm not sure what he did, but the family does claim that this possible curse is the result of something that he did when he was alive.
Yikes.
He died in 1970. His daughter, Anne, my grandmother, was 29 years old. At the time, my great-grandfather was the oldest member of their family. The year after his death, my Aunt Beth was born in 1971. The next oldest member of the family was Anne's mother-in-law, who was also Beth's grandmother. She died in 1980. Anne was 39 years old. Beth was 9. By 1990, Anne's mom was the oldest in the family, and she passed when Anne was 49 years old. Beth was 19.
Oh.
My Aunt Beth has never had children and has one older brother, my dad. And so when I was born, I was the next girl in the family line. I was blissfully unaware of all of this until I was about 10 or 11, I think. And I don't really know if it was something that my aunt or even my grandmother thought about as my grandmother approached 59. There was about a 4-day window when my grandmother was 59 and my aunt was 29 and I was 9. Looking back, I wonder if everyone was panicked in those 4 days back in 2001, but I don't know if I'll ever know. My grandfather was the oldest family member immediately connected to all 3 of us. My grandmother turned 60 in April, 4 days after I turned 9. My grandfather celebrated with her. That May, my grandfather was unexpectedly diagnosed with cancer. The doctors felt like they had caught it early enough to do surgery and start treatment, so they performed the surgery in June, and I remember seeing him in the hospital, and he was doing well. He seemed like his usual self, just ready to go home. He was discharged a few days later and sent home to recover, and everything had gone well. But then he passed unexpectedly a few nights after he got home.
Oh.
The surgery had caused a blood clot that had made its way to his heart. It happened
So
4
sad.
days before my aunt's 30th birthday, while she was still 29, and I was 9. It was devastating. The following year was really hard. My dad struggled with it for a long time. Our relationship with my grandmother and my aunt started to deteriorate after my grandfather had passed, and it's all very complicated, and I won't get into that now. But I suppose that if this possible curse had followed the usual trajectory, the next death would be when I was 19. The oldest member of my family was my maternal grandfather, who was 83, and it seemed to happen 3 times in a row over the span of 30 years, and there was always a 9 in the age of the female family member, which would mean that it was done with my grandmother and done with my aunt. It was just me now, the next girl in the family line. So I guess I threw everyone off when my maternal grandfather died the following March. It didn't follow the pattern. I still was 9 years old. But then came the realization. My grandfathers died 9 months and 9 days apart. My dad explained all of this to me a few years later, and I'm not sure why he decided to tell me this because it really did upset me so much that I spent a few days crying and freaking out because, curses are scary. So needless to say, I was pretty freaked out about turning 19. It could all be a weird coincidence, but it still freaks me out when I think about it. But hearing Lily's story made me feel a little bit less alone in this mystery, and I hope you're doing well, Lily. Some other time I'll have to tell you all of my other stories because my husband's sleepwalking is seriously the creepiest thing I've ever seen, but he's pretty cool when he's awake. Thank you for keeping this out-of-work indie film actress both highly entertained and a little bit spooked during quarantine. Wishing you all the best. Stay safe, stay sane, Rena.
This is so hard because it's like,
I know.
Rena said in the beginning, what was it? Like the paternal great-grandfather was not the best person, but it seems like this 9's, like the number 9 connection is traversing not just the paternal side, but also now on the matriarchal side.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't mean that someone dies when they have a 9 in their age. It could mean someone close to them dies. So it's like, you never know if it's coming for you or someone close to you, which is so frightening.
Again, this one is hard where it's like, now that you've put it into, because it's so spoken about amongst this family, like, not that you can cause someone to die just by believing in a curse, but like, what does having them, like, I always say this about tarot readings and like palm readings and future readings, psychic readings and stuff like that, where I was so anti them growing up because I was so nervous that I would be told something and I would make it happen because that's what I believed was going to happen.
Yeah. But isn't that part of manifestation too, is you speak as if something has already happened or that it will
but what if it's
happen,
negative?
and then it does. Yeah. But then can't you have the opportunity to try to manifest the opposite? I don't know.
I think I'm impressionable enough that if I went to a psychic, I would go with a openness and willingness to believe that they have the abilities to accurately give me messages that
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, well, that's going to happen. I have no control. I don't know. It's hard. It's difficult. And I hope that this isn't a real curse. And I hope you break the curse. I hope you live to be 110.
Yes.
If that's
And
what you
that
want.
everyone around you, no one dies at all in the years that you have 9, so that you can feel like the curse has lifted. It's broken. You guys
Yeah.
are safe. All the other girls born within your family, nieces, children of your own, if you choose to have any, everybody will be okay.
Okay, let's manipulate the curse. Who needs the number 9? Rena, your family, number 9 doesn't exist. Just get rid of it. You go from 8 to 10.
You're 28 again. You're 38 again. It's like the 13th floor in hotels.
You just skip it.
It might be there, but we're not acknowledging it.
And if you don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. So, science.
Brains.
Okay, I have this one I kind of took a pivot, but I thought it would be a fun one. Well, it's also scary, but fun to mix it up a little bit. It is about a curse, but this is from our listener, Wit. And it's, I think I cursed someone once. And this reminds me, Corinne, of something you said recently on the podcast that I had no idea. And you were like, I think I've told you this before. And I was like, no, you haven't. But anyway, it made you change and basically be like, I'll never curse someone again.
Oh. Me and my brother are both saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Wit says, I think I cursed someone. Hello, everyone. I'm going to just jump into this. So about 5 years ago, I was with my ex, who I will call Sam. Sam has a brother who we will call Frank. And during this relationship with Sam, I grew to loathe Frank due to the sheer amount of money and possessions he stole from both Sam and I to feed his own drug addiction.
Oh, that's tough.
He also took advantage of his family often, and it was all around just a really terrible situation to be in. Anyway, another family member of theirs helped Frank get a new car so that he could get to his job easier, and was told that eventually he needed to pay this person back. After that, Frank decided to steal lots of my own possessions to pawn for drug money, and I was extremely upset about it. There was nothing I could really do without it upsetting my then boyfriend, so I just held on to this anger. I later came across something on the internet, and it was a how to curse someone. I'm not going to describe what to do because of what happened next. So there I was, and I performed what was instructed. I did all the steps, and at one point you have to envision what you want to happen. The first thing that came to mind was that I hoped he wrecked his new car. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to total it. Can you guess what happened 2 weeks later?
He wrecked his car.
Frank totaled his car. He was not hurt. He didn't hit anyone else. He collided directly into a rock on the side of the road when he was apparently reaching down to get his dip. To clarify, I am not a practicing witch, and I really didn't think it would work. I just needed to channel my anger, and that was how I did it. Since that day, I have sworn to never do it to another person, and really nothing else has happened to people I know. See you on the other side, Wit.
Oh my gosh. See, I do relate to this. It's like one and done where you're like, whether it's total coincidence or my thoughts and my energy directed towards that person, and it was like the last thing that was needed to make this happen. You never want to feel that sort of responsibility for something bad happening to someone.
Because it could be a total coincidence, but it does feel like you're like, oh shit. And I do think things like this happen, not necessarily often, but we don't realize the power our energy has. And when you're feeling such anger, you never know how doing something like this might come out.
Right. I'm just glad no one was truly killed and seriously injured in that. Okay, this is called the Hat Man Curse.
Oh no.
Hey guys. So first off, I love the show. And second off, I know how crazy weird this sounds and how it sounds like it's just some 2009 creepypasta by some 12-year-old. But I promise that this is exactly what my friend told me, and I just suck at writing. I'm sure you don't. So several months ago, my lab partner in chemistry class told me this story about her own family curse, and even worse, how she's next in line. We were casually talking about how weird our family was, and she mentioned how a couple weeks ago, she woke up to the sound of her 19-year-old brother screaming and sobbing. She then told me how she rushed out of her room and into the hallway connecting all of the bedrooms to see her brother absolutely losing his shit, running around yelling and crying, and her parents soon grabbed him and pulled him into his room where they stayed and talked for nearly an hour. My friend, of course, tried to overhear, but she couldn't really overhear more than mumbles. After this, my friend said that her parents and her brother refused to talk about it despite how much she tried to make them. It took another week or two as she was telling over dinner a weird dream that she had had the night before. And in this dream, she woke up and she walked out to the living room. And then all of a sudden, she was dragged into her parents' room by this dark force while her parents simply watched. Her mother even telling her that there was no point in fighting back. And then she woke up for a few seconds before she was completely dragged inside of the room. When she shared this dream, her dad and mom kind of looked at each other with that, oh no, look in their eyes. And after her dad took her out of the room and told her everything, everyone in their family has been visited by who they call the Hat Man. This man, who apparently is nothing but darkness, and he wears a large brimmed hat and has dark glowing eyes. He appears between the hours of 12 and 4 a.m. and he will speak to you, although not normally. What he says is total gibberish while you somehow understand what he's saying. The Hat Man then slowly moves towards you and lowers his face down to yours before you wake up. Apparently, that is what happened to my friend's older brother that one particular night, and has also happened to her dad, and it's believed that the curse happened in her mom's family since her great-grandmother and grandmother also have seen the Hat Man for the last several generations. After my friend told me this story, we started doing our own research into this Hat Man, and apparently several other people have been visited by him as well, and he appears to be another shadow person, but somehow darker and more powerful. I haven't yet reached your episode on shadow people, so I don't know whether or not you two know of him, but at least here's another sighting. I don't know if this family curse is real or if it was just my friend's dad trying to freak her out, so she stopped asking questions. But either way, it's freaky as hell, and her adult brother still cannot sleep without a light on since. Weird story over. You two are great. Best regards, Bella.
Okay, so that's terrifying. The being dragged, because I haven't heard that where the Hat Man drags people.
No. Although this is reminding me so much of, I've referenced this so many times, but my friend Nikita, who had a dream that she was being dragged down her hallway in her childhood home.
I know, I hate it.
And yeah, thought it was a dream, woke up, had rug burns all down the front of her body. So this is making me think, was it a dream?
I don't believe it was a dream.
For Bella, was this truly all existing in the dream world too, Bella's encounter with this dark, demonic shadow figure, the Hat Man? Or was there some sort of back and forth too? Because Bella was getting dragged and she felt like she was waking up in the dream too for a split second and then would be dragged again. But then, of course, her parents weren't actually there being taunting her. And, there's nothing you can do.
But it was the whole family had been experiencing it, and even the brother too. So
right.
I mean, we have heard that the Hat Man is a familiar, and I know there are some people who listen to this podcast who really hate us using that name, so I will no longer continue to use it. But we've heard it is a familial, inherited haunting, which is so confusing, especially with such negativity. But it's when did it start? And how did it pick this family?
I know. Because there's no other shadow people that have that association as being this sort of generational, passed down curse of an entity that follows them. It's just this guy.
Freaky guy. Well, okay, I have another freaky email to end us on. It's from our listener, Maya, and it is called Black Magic. Hello, Corinne, Sabrina, and Leia. I've started listening to your podcast, and I listened to it at 1.2 speed in an attempt to catch up. I've been very dedicated. I started on episode 1, and I'm listening through. I just finished a couple more episodes today at work, including episode 44, which was Dead Man's Island. You guys mentioned Vancouver Island, which is where I'm from, so I just feel even more like we are besties. Woo! So I'd like to tell you too a story of black magic from my family. I mentioned how my family is indigenous to this land in a previous email. I had heard of black magic involved in some First Nation culture, but I didn't know mine was included. This first story was just recently told to me, but happened in 2003 when I was a baby. And this email was sent to us in May of 2023, when this episode comes out a year ago. My dad had moved in with my mom because my family lived 2 hours away, and now it was time for their own. One morning, my dad woke up after my mom, but when he woke up, he was paralyzed from the waist down. He called out to my mom. She was in the kitchen, and she came to find him, unable to move or get out of bed. I guess while living with my grandma, my dad had made some people upset enough to put a curse on my dad, literally leaving him paralyzed. My parents called my grandma, who had some elders come bless my dad and cleanse the house. Thankfully, after this cleansing, my dad was able to regain all movement back in his legs.
Wow, good.
That's so intense.
Scary.
For such a long period of time.
And to physically affect you like that.
Yeah.
debilitate you like that.
Also, is it bad that I like want to know what he did to upset people or what they interpreted as a negative thing and what kind of curse they did?
Yeah, what to avoid when you are choosing to actively be mean to everyone. Well, what can I say though?
Okay. This second story happened a year ago, unfortunately, at my uncle's funeral. In my culture, a funeral is a ceremony that takes place over 7 days. It requires all individuals, children, and spouse to have their eyes covered in this time of mourning. The rest of my family, closely related, was there to support and mourn together as one. My uncle was a scandalous fisherman who once had an affair ending in pregnancy, and my family did not invite my uncle's other daughter and said she was unwelcome to attend due to the stress it would have on my aunt and cousins. During a time of silence, the other daughter walked in with her family and her eyes covered in mourning as her family practiced the same culture. It made a lot of people upset and quickly turned into an argument, resulting in the other daughter and family literally being kicked out to the steps.
Oh, see, that's so tough.
It's so tough. This obviously upset them, and unknown to most, while they stood on the steps, the other family huddled together and put a curse on our entire family that would turn everyone against each other.
Uh-oh. Well, that's not the proper response to that situation.
No, but I understand it. Like,
right.
It's basically like you won't accept us as your family, so we're going to tear apart your whole family.
Yeah.
Now you won't accept any of you as family. I know it's messed up, but like, okay. There's also a lot of emotion involved in it, you know?
I just wish that,
Wish that it didn't happen.
I wish it didn't happen. I wish they were just like, wow, that family's messed up. Thank God we have each other, and could just like latch onto each other instead of being like, all I want is to be part of your family and I'm upset by you kicking me out of this funeral. So I'm going to curse you forever.
I do appreciate though that entire family unit was on the same page. Like they clearly like, they're like, yeah, we're all doing this.
That's true. Strong bonds.
Families that curse together, stay together. This is sad. Okay. My mom took my brother and I to the funeral, and we left that evening to drive 2 hours home without any knowledge of the curse that this other family put on us. My dad ended up calling my mom 2 days later after he found out what had happened and told us immediately that we had to drive down island to be part of a cleansing ceremony from the Shaker Church. My mom and I made the trip, but my brother refused. It was a 4-hour ceremony in a small room lit only with candles and one chair in the middle. One by one, each of our family members and I were cleansed by touch and song. It may not sound like much, but I don't know how to explain the energy in this room. You could feel the song and soul from everyone in your bones. It finally ended at 11 p.m. and we made it home at 1. My brother never went, so who knows if it's fully gone. Anyway, I'll see you on the other side. Maya.
See, that's a very ominous way to end an email where it's like, is it gone? Is it not? Will we be cursed once more?
If it had worked, Maya would probably have given us some indication of a tear in their family, which doesn't sound like it's happened yet. I'm just glad that they were able to, like, I wonder who from that family let them know that there was a curse put on them, you know?
That's what I was just thinking. Or like, was it one of those things where something happened, so they went and saw like a special practitioner who can identify curses that was like, oh, you have a curse on you, and this is what I'm picking up on. Like, how did they find out about the curse? Because it didn't last very long.
No.
What did they say? Like basically like a week or so before?
Something like that. Like they were very diligent in, all right, we heard about it. We're going to take action.
Gotta get rid of it now.
Yeah.
And also it does help. I think knowing that there was intentionally a curse to pull you apart is so helpful to know that, because whether it was going to work or not, every time there's some sort of argument, every time there's an opportunity for people to have a rift, you can be like, this is not us. This is the curse. Like, let's work our way through this because we cannot let the curse win. I feel like there is some power in convincing yourself that you have to fight against the curse instead of fight against each other.
Right. I do love that, like, the whole family, I mean, aside from Maya's brother, did come together to like do this whole ritual.
Yeah, so it's not ripping the family apart. In fact, it's bringing them together again.
It is. That's true.
Even more.
It's true. Well,
man,
if you're cursed or if you've cursed anyone, let us know.
Please do.
I feel like we used to say don't curse anyone, and I do very much believe, like, I'm not saying go curse whoever you want, but after talking to Theo and reading Theo's book, The Witch Belongs to the World, I did have a switch in understanding of curses, because they're not all bad, and some curses I think curse might be like the wrong word for it, but it's almost like justice and karma.
Yeah, justice, karma, giving someone else a learning opportunity, so long as there's no real harm in what's happening.
I still think about, maybe this is an email I can read in our revisiting encounters, but there was one email from a listener about a curse where like the uncle was cursed by the ex-girlfriend and she started losing hair. And there was like a whole practice that he had to do to try to break it. Do you remember this?
Not really.
Okay, I'll find it and read it again on a upcoming one. Because it stuck with me.
Is it in Mexico or maybe one of the like Central American cultures? There's like some practice, I'm going to butcher it, where we've had listeners tell us about it, where like you crack an egg and depending on what the egg looks like, you'll know if you've been cursed or not.
Yeah, I think we had an email about it. I can't remember what you see in the egg. I think it was like muddiness, like the color of the yolk or something.
Yeah, or
if it's
like
cloudy,
if it's really stringy. Yeah, if it's cloudy, there's something.
Yeah.
We have to revisit this. If we ever feel like we're cursed, we gotta revisit, have someone help us with the egg.
We should do like a whole episode on like different curses and different like practices of breaking curses.
We need an instruction manual.
I feel like it requires a lot of help from our listeners because there are so many different practices. If you have an understanding of curses and how to break curses, will you email them to us and we'll include them in this episode that we will do eventually?
That's a great idea. How to reverse the curse. Let us
Reverse
know,
the curse.
and we'll share the information with everybody else.
Yes.
But if you have any hauntings, curses, visits from loved ones, pets, just spookiness around your life or around the people around you's lives, words, then please email us at twogirlsoneghost@gmail.com. You can rate and review our podcast wherever you listen. It really does help move us up in the charts, which helps more people find us. Mm-hmm. But you can also help people find us by talking about the podcast.
Pyramid scheme, baby.
Abduct. I keep saying abduct because I am fully visualizing us in a spaceship coming, but induct people into our spooky triangle.
Like the idea of abducting people to listen. So we are telling you to tie people up and force them to listen to our podcast.
Wow, bondage suddenly.
We're all into some weird things.
Don't yuck another person's yum.
Oh, I love that phrase.
Have you never heard that?
No.
Yeah, don't yuck another person's yum. Is this changing you?
Yes, I don't know how, but it feels like I'm having a profound awakening. Don't yuck another person's yum.
Just because it's weird to you doesn't mean.
This is my foreplay of wordplay. Like this is like you just turned me on.
You're welcome. Well, what else? Oh, Patreon. We have ad-free episodes 1 week early over on Patreon. We also have an extra full-length episode every single month. We have book club over there. We have campfire stories every single week. So we tell ghost stories live. There's so much going on over there, so much activity. So check it out and become a Most Haunted friend.
Please.
And otherwise, you can just follow us on social media. Keep listening, coming back every single week. We appreciate you.
We really do. And we also really appreciate our editor and producer, Jamie Ryan, who edits our video and our audio. Every episode you watch or listen to, Jamie has magically imparted her gifts of editing onto. So thank you. And thank you to all of you for listening. We love you.
And we will see you on the other side.